come forward with the fiscal statement with an OBR forecast, but Luke wants to ignore it because the OBR forecast makes absolutely clear that the reason for the challenges we face are down to the pandemic and the war in Ukraine and the pressure that is putting on finances across the world, raising inflation and putting huge pressure on our public finances and our economy. Now, we had some really difficult decisions to make in this financial statement. I believe Jeremy Hunt got them just about right in balancing the measures we need to take. We have protected the most vulnerable by raising pensions and benefits and the living wage by the inflation rate. That puts more money in the pockets of those that absolutely need it most. But we are not running away. I find it strange we're talking about stealth tax when we're talking about them openly here on the BBC. We're not trying to hide anything. We've been very open and honest with the British public. We have some really challenging months ahead of us, but the measures that Jeremy Hunt has taken, the OBR have agreed, will mean that the pressure we will face will be shorter than otherwise, and we do have some challenging times, but we are now in a place where we can get through them as quickly as possible.
Okay, I want to bring Caroline in. Somebody in the studio, it might have been Luke, mentioned Brexit, I think, when Steve was listing the background to this, the war in Ukraine and the pandemic. Caroline, I'm interested in what the LibDems would do, but I mean, there's a story, which we'll ask Steve about in a minute, on the front page of the Sunday Times, suggesting that the government might be looking at some kind of Swiss deal with the EU, you know, revisiting our relationship, a closer relationship with the EU, something, because I know, historically at least, you've been very keen on.
Well, I just think what we've seen last week with this budget is a damage limitation exercise, and the elephant in the room is Brexit. You know, nobody dares mention it. The Conservatives won't talk about it. Labour doesn't want to talk about it either. But you know, the biggest self-inflicted damage we've done to our economy was 6 years ago with Brexit. Even the Bank of England is now saying that has so badly affected our economy that, you know, we're in a worse place than all our, you know, sort of competitor economies, or, you know, economies that are similar to ours. And you know, so we had Brexit, then we had, you know, they blame everything on the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, but, you know, billions of pounds spent on dodgy PPE contracts and business loans, and then Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss crashing the economy, which they won't even apologise for. So, you know, this is self-inflicted damage that ordinary people are paying for.
I'm quite keen just briefly to get your positions on this. From my understanding, the LibDems, from I think their latest signed-off policy document, is you would seek a closer relationship and paving the way, essentially, to go back into the single market. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have got to start making strides to get back into the single market, to improve our trading position. The Conservatives talk all the time about growing the economy, and yet they chose to do something that absolutely shut down our economy.
Okay, and Luke, of course, I mean, that's not Labour's position. You're going to make Brexit work.
You can't make it work.
That's Keir Starmer's.
It will not work.
So what we've said is that we need to fix the immediate holes in the Brexit deal that is screwing over our fishers and our farmers in particular. That's created the massive amount of paperwork. One way of doing that would be to implement a veterinary agreement. It sounds very technical, but what that means is that you recognise standards on both sides of the border, which reduces paperwork, reduces costs for business, and would improve and rescue some of the trade that's been lost. Then more that needs to be done on top of that, but that's the immediate actions that need to be taken to fix the damage, some of the damage the Tories have done.
And to Steve, I mean, Steve, you of course, you know, an ardent Brexiteer. I mean, you know, there's a lot of very, very adverse reaction on the right today to this story in the front of the Sunday Times. Whether it's true, I mean, is it true that the government's contemplating a Swiss-style relationship with the EU? And what would you as a Brexiteer make of that, and a member of the government?
Well, as soon as I saw those stories, I checked with Number 10 and was absolutely sure that it's nonsense, those discussions are not going on. And I was pleased that Steve Barclay earlier on BBC confirmed that it is not a story that has any credence at all.